podcast where we put you on the map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live from the Mapable USA studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. And today, folks, we're going to talk about opportunity zones. Are they working? We got a few interesting topics to go over. But before we do that, let's introduce Vicky Hutchmala from the QOZ Marketplace. Vicky, how are you today?
Oh, I'm fabulous today, Ron, and it was exciting. We got to see the eclipse and all of that stuff, and now we have one of our previous guests on, and we're going to talk our favorite topic, opportunity zones, and exciting ways to use them. So let's get started.
Okay, that sounds great. Let's introduce Brion Crum. Brion is the VP of Wealth Development over at the Caliber Companies. Brion, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Ron and Vicky, it's great to be on the show again with you.
Our pleasure, Brion.
Yeah, this is great. I'm glad we got you. It took a while, but we got you back on there, so that's good. I know you're probably one of the busiest people out there. You're always traveling around. It's like, how many phone numbers do you have these days?
Fortunately, only two numbers, and they can reach me from anywhere in the world.
Right.
And can you remember what time zone it is?
That's actually the tricky part.
Yes. Well, listen, before we get into this whole opportunity zones thing, Brion, in case somebody didn't hear our last podcast with you a while back, why don't you give us a little bit of background on yourself and how you got to be where you are right now?
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. I work at a company called Caliber. Caliber is a Scottsdale, Arizona-based vertically integrated real estate asset manager and developer, and I've been working at Caliber for almost a decade now. Prior to working at Caliber, I was working in more traditional financial services, but I was also helping some entrepreneurs start and grow businesses. So between my background in helping people start and grow businesses in financial services, when I learned what Caliber was doing, finding opportunistic real estate investments in America that could be invested in by successful business owners that can invest directly into, let's say, building an apartment complex or a hospital or a hotel that will have an impact on their own community, it really was an exciting opportunity to move from traditional financial services into what's now known as alternative investments. So just to kind of fast forward how we got from beginning at Caliber in 2014, when I first joined there from Merrill Lynch, and what happened in 2018, which was when the Opportunity Zone program was created. Caliber has been making acquisitions of existing properties. Typically, we'd buy an apartment complex in a good location, oftentimes near a university. We would do a renovation, convert it into, let's say, off-campus student housing. So when the Opportunity Zone program was created, Caliber actually looked at our business model. We looked at the areas that we were investing in and the types of investments we were making. And there was so many similarities between what our current business model was and what the Opportunity Zone program was intended to do, that we made the decision to jump on board, go all in, and became one of the first vertically integrated real estate companies to launch Opportunity Zone funds back in 2018.
Wow. You know what's interesting about opportunity zones, Brion, is it's as you said, started in 2018, but now after almost 6 years, it's amazing how many people, even real estate people, still have no idea that it even exists or what it is or anything about it. Do you find that in areas where you decide to put in a project?
I've always been interested in educating people about different types of financial services and investments. And the fact that there's still a lot of people, even though we're, starting in 2018, we're starting into 2024 now. So the program's been around for a while. There are still a lot of people that maybe have either heard of it but don't have a lot of understanding, or that have never heard of it before. So I do like the fact that we get to educate people, whether they're financial advisors, CPA, real estate professionals, business owners that might be able to take advantage of the program. So I do like the fact that we are able to be one of those educational resources for the program.
And that's what we're all about. Ron and I in our podcast, we're all about educating people in a way that's interesting and knowledgeable. And that's one of the reasons why we love to have guests like you who have so much experience but are able to provide real life education and experience so that it doesn't seem so kind of, I don't know if scary is the word, but apprehensive about doing it or learning it or going into it so that's fabulous. That's what we're all about as well. What would you say the best parts or the worst parts of the program are, or what needs to be revised or changed?
So I think that some of the most positive aspects of the Opportunity Zone program is the fact that we have now proven that by making these investments in the communities, whether it's launching a factory that's creating jobs, building a school, building a hospital that is now providing better educational opportunities or healthcare results, I think there's a lot of metrics behind it proving that these areas are seeing investment that they wouldn't have otherwise seen without the program. And of course, from the investor standpoint, the ability to prevent paying future capital gains after the 10-year holding period is pretty powerful. As an example, we like sharing with people that might have some familiarity with both IRAs and 1031 exchanges when it comes to real estate. In some ways, it's like putting a Roth IRA on the back end of a 1031 exchange, except those programs previously, there wasn't really a way to combine them. So I think there's a lot of upside educational opportunity. There's a lot of significant tax benefits from the program. But my favorite part is the true impact that has been made in some of these communities. And one of the examples that I like to share, which I find is also an example of how you can invest into companies and innovation, but it also creates jobs in an opportunity zone, is an investment that Caliber made a couple of years ago, where our Opportunity Zone Fund became the lead angel investor in a sustainable housing startup that is on Navajo territory. Yep, so I think you'll find this really interesting. So as you may know, a lot of opportunity zones in the country are actually on tribal communities, both urban and rural. So the example of this is that Caliber's Opportunity Zone Fund invested into basically a startup manufacturing company that has a manufacturing facility building sustainable homes inside of what used to be a coal-fired power plant at the edge of the Grand Canyon. So the power plant was shut down. Hundreds of jobs were lost, mostly by Native Americans in the Navajo tribal community that live in the area. And we were able to, through that investment, convert one of the empty warehouse buildings into a manufacturing facility where now there are homes being built by Navajo tribal members for other people, including for sustainable housing. And it was all made possible through the Opportunity Zone program.
And that was the whole point of the program, was to help people in areas that had been distressed for whatever reason and to bring them back to life. That's fabulous. And I guess people, when they think of opportunity zones, think of them in terms of distressed areas in cities. But it's unusual for people to think of opportunity zones in areas like reservations or just out in rural areas where it's not the city, where you're helping people that aren't city dwellers. That's the possibilities of the program.
Yeah, when the program was created, there were definitely a lot of communities that were trying to figure out, both urban and rural, how to take advantage of this program. And so a couple examples, like some smaller towns in America, they might have old warehouse or old factory buildings that were shut down. And they've done renovations, they've done mixed use, adaptive reuse, they've turned an old factory into a loft that might have living on the top floors and then retail on the bottom, and sometimes they even build co-working spaces into them. I know that some of the examples that Caliber has been working with actually are urban. So typically Caliber likes investing near areas of innovation, including near growing universities. So an example of an urban adaptive reuse investment that Caliber's Opportunity Zone funds have made, we bought an old, it was actually the original downtown Mesa, Arizona department store. It had since been converted into an antique store. And we bought that building and renovated it, kept a lot of the historic nature, but converted it into a co-working space. So that means we're actually helping small businesses grow. And then, maybe it might be their first office ever. And then once they outgrow that, they might take up some office space in other parts of the city. So I've also seen that happening in some rural communities where you're able to take an older, unused building and adapt it for current uses.
That's incredible. That's just the purpose of the program. And what would you like to see going forward in changes, if any?
I think the biggest change that anyone that's been actively involved in the Opportunity Zone program would like to see is an actual extension of the program. So just to hit a couple of the highlights for people that might be listening about Opportunity Zones for the first time or just need a refresher, there were several main tax benefits. Each of them had their own time window. So one of the initial timelines of the program was the fact that if you made an investment of your capital gains into an Opportunity Zone fund, by the end of 2026, you still had to pay a deferred amount of your original capital gains taxes. So unless the federal government extends the program through an act of Congress and stretches it out or makes it permanent, technically the program from its initial tax benefit is going to sunset in 2026. So having an extension of the program would be one of the things I would love to see. Another thing that I think will happen is if we do see an extension, they're also going to make some improvements in the program. And I think one of those improvements would be actually measuring the impact that these investments have had. So we already know at Caliber that if we're doing a renovation from a business that maybe had 5 employees to helping hundreds of people start their own business, there's a positive economic impact for that. The same thing with converting a Wells Fargo corporate campus into a Montessori school, which is one of the other adaptive reuse projects we did, something that is pretty obvious that it's got a positive impact, not just for the people that you create jobs for, but the outcomes from more behavioral healthcare treatment. So Caliber also had converted an old assisted living facility into a brand new behavioral healthcare hospital. So I'd also like to see more examples of older, underutilized properties get converted, not just into apartments, but into something that has a lot of job creation and have a way to track that better.
Yeah, with big impact.
Yeah, definitely measure the impact.
Yeah. So anyway, Brian, I have a couple of questions on what you just went over. Caliber's obviously into a lot of different projects and development projects and everything out there. When an investor comes in and invests into the company, is he investing in a top-level fund or is he investing in a fund created by each particular project?
That's a great question, and there's actually 2 answers to that. If an investor comes to Caliber with a capital gain and they have not gone to the next step of creating their own Opportunity Zone fund, they're going to be investing with us as a limited partner into one of our funds. And our 2 main funds are vertically integrated. They're diversified. They're in multiple states. Right now we're in Arizona and California. So someone is going to become an investor in a diversified portfolio. The other option is someone who had a capital gain that was large enough that it made sense for them to actually create their own Opportunity Zone fund. They can then take their fund and invest it side by side into Caliber-created Opportunity Zone fund eligible investments. And we have a couple examples that we've done that with. Both of them so far have been apartment complexes. So remember I mentioned earlier that we like to build in areas that are near economic innovation created by universities. So one of the first investments that Caliber made in downtown Mesa, Arizona, which is where Arizona State University has built an extended technology campus, was one of these types of investments. It was a 144-unit ground up workforce housing. And we did make that eligible so that people that had their own opportunity zone fund could actually invest side by side with us. And then we just created that same opportunity in downtown Brion, which is a sister city with College Station in Texas. And this is where Texas A&M is headquartered. So right now we're getting ready to break ground on a 92-unit multifamily apartment complex that also has a multi-use facility with ground floor retail in a parking garage. So we do have some investments. If you've created your own opportunity zone fund, you can invest side by side with Caliber.
Is that something new as far as the ability to do that? I thought that you weren't able to do that when the program first started.
So they still have a restriction that hasn't really been fully worked out, where an opportunity zone fund doesn't necessarily invest directly into another fund, but a fund can go into an opportunity zone project that another fund has invested. So it's basically it's a co-investment opportunity.
Okay.
Although we have worked with attorneys and people that are kind of overlooking the whole program at the government level, and we have developed a way where if you already had your own opportunity zone fund and you decided that you didn't want to operate it anymore, but you wanted to keep it active, Caliber could look at actually doing a fund merger. So we actually do have a fund merger program that we've taken a look at. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say a business owner sold their business. They set up their own opportunity zone fund. They identified a few investments that they wanted to make, but then realized they didn't want to basically, have this whole new job that they created for themselves. So Caliber could come in, take a look at the current investments in the other fund, including, cash that they had in there that hadn't been deployed, and then determine whether or not it made sense for us basically to merge that fund with our fund. So it gets a little deep in the weeds from a technical standpoint, but it is something that we have taken a look at on behalf of other opportunity zone fund operators.
Yeah, because I think that's huge right now. Because I think a lot of people, I think, want to start their own fund, and the process actually is pretty easy from what I understand, but the compliance end of it is also very difficult. And if you're not compliant in the long run, you're going to be paying a hefty tax thing when the IRS comes to audit you way back when you say, hey, I don't want to pay any capital gains taxes, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense to do what you just mentioned.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, it's relatively easy to set the fund up if you're working with the right professionals, but then you have an ongoing obligation annually and semi-annually even just to keep up with the compliance, all the IRS filing, and also making sure that you're coming up with enough quality deal flow so that your investments that you're making are, some of the best that are out there.
Right.
And that's when Caliber's there. You guys are huge. Your fund sizes are enormous. So that's pretty impressive too. So are you looking to branch into other states now or what?
Caliber's first expansion in the Opportunity Zone program outside of Arizona was into Texas. So we're definitely excited about seeing new investment opportunities in Texas. We also have land that we've been developing in Colorado. It's not in an opportunity zone, but because we have a presence there, we do see opportunity zone type investments. So Caliber's been looking at and underwriting opportunity zone investments in a number of states. We do prefer to stay in the Southwest United States. Geographically, we're talking about Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Texas. We've looked at some investments on the coasts, but frankly, between everything being very expensive and having a lot more hoops to jump through, and even some states that don't really necessarily fully support the program, we're pretty happy with the investments that we've been making and the amount of deals that we're seeing in our current markets, which is predominantly Arizona and Texas, with potential to expand into some of these other, high growth, low tax, friendly government related states.
You know what you could do too? You could
very nice.
you can maybe enter Las Vegas and implode an existing casino down to the ground and build it up again.
We've heard that those types of things are happening.
And amazing how there's opportunity zones on the Strip.
Yeah, that's for sure as well. But another question, Brian, is you mentioned that these funds are vertically integrated. What do you mean by that exactly?
So Caliber is not just raising capital into a fund and then going and finding and hiring other real estate companies. So as an example, Caliber will create the investment opportunity, we'll source it, we'll fund the debt, we'll hire a third-party construction company and create a successful investment through that. So Caliber is vertically integrated. So that means that each of our funds also is all controlled directly by Caliber at the parent company level.
Okay, all right. And then you mentioned also you're doing a multifamily project. What other projects do you do? Do you do anything kind of original and interesting?
Yes. In addition to the investment that we made into Zenny Home, which is the sustainable modular housing company headquartered up at the Grand Canyon, we're also partnering with what would be one of the premier national and likely global pickleball facilities. So pickleball, as you may know, has just been taking off like crazy. It's one of the fastest growing sports. And we have entered a partnership with the founders of Pure Pickleball, so Pure, P-U-R-E, Pickleball. So we're going to be building a world-class facility right down the street from the Caliber office. It's actually in an opportunity zone on another tribal community. This one's with the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. And for people familiar with Scottsdale or just central Arizona in general, it's right across the street from Talking Stick Field, which is where Arizona Diamondbacks and the Colorado Rockies play spring training. It's also right next to Topgolf. So Topgolf, which is now part of Callaway, is one of the premier, sporting and entertainment venues in the country. So we already have a lot of people coming to this area for sports and entertainment related businesses. And just like everywhere else in America, there's really a shortage of courts. So there's public courts, but there's a relatively number of private courts out there. And typically most of these pickleball facilities are not big enough to do, large competitions. So this is going to have a stadium. It's going to have production capabilities where people could actually film like reality TV shows about pickleball. So this is going to be a premier pickleball facility, and we're going to be building and investing and developing the first of these pure pickleball facilities across the country right there in Scottsdale.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is great. I haven't played pickleball really, but somebody told me that pickleball is ping pong, but you're standing on the table. So
it's kind of like this, kind of like pickleball. Yeah, it's like ping pong on half of a tennis court, I think is a good way to simplify it.
Yeah, but I know it's very popular. Everyone seems to be playing it over here as well. So that's a great opportunity. So you got that going on. You got the funds. What's the story in terms of how you're getting investors? Are you doing active marketing, or is it word of mouth, or what at this point?
Yeah, a lot of it is active marketing. At Caliber, we create a lot of educational content. Sometimes it might be Chris Loeffler, our co-founder and CEO, doing a presentation, typically at some sort of a conference, getting on other podcasts like this, but also getting in front of business advisors. Sometimes it's a financial advisor, sometimes it's a CPA. So Caliber likes to be able to get in front of an audience of business professionals that may themselves or within their networks of people that they're advising have some sort of a capital gain. A lot of the upside opportunity from an educational standpoint is getting inside of groups that are working with business owners that are selling their company to their employees through an ESOP, as an example, or to get in front of the investors of private equity and venture funds, because anytime those funds that they've invested into have a successful exit, is typically going to create a capital gain that they'll learn about on their K1 partnership return. And then at that point, they'll realize, hey, I'm going to have a pretty significant tax bill. How do I find a way to take advantage of this opportunity zone program? And Caliber wants to be front and center in those conversations from an educational opportunity standpoint.
Yeah, and some of these people, I'm sure, have a lot of capital gains where they don't know how to invest in real estate, or they don't know how to, what business to get into. So you guys are there to pick up the slack for that and say, we're going to hold your hand and take you through the whole process, right?
Correct. Yeah, a lot of our investors are successful business owners. Some of them may still be actively, operating their business because maybe there was an acquisition, but they're still actively involved. Maybe they're a doctor and their practice was sold to a bigger group, but they're still actively, acting in their profession. So we work with a lot of people that don't have the time and expertise to basically recreate what we've done with the Opportunity Zone Fund program. So that's one of the areas that I think that we can add a lot of value for people in any of those situations.
Yeah, and one more question before we close this out. You mentioned at the top of the show that some people that you're encountering are doing 1031 exchanges into this. How is that possible?
So they're not actually doing a 1031 into an opportunity zone. What they're doing is we're using this as an alternative to a 1031 exchange. So for anyone that's not familiar with that term, if you have a business asset, and it's typically been real estate, but if you have a piece of real estate and you sell it, in order to defer and then eventually eliminate your capital gains tax, you could do what's called a 1031 exchange. But that basically means that you have to find a like type of property, and you have to roll the whole amount of the transaction from one investment to the next, meaning that includes the value of your original cost basis in the property, and you also have to incorporate any type of debt you might have had on the property. So a 1031 doesn't work for every real estate transaction. So we like to be in the conversation with people that maybe they've started a 1031 exchange and they got to the point where they didn't find any suitable investments to do the exchange through, or maybe they did identify within their time period and the deal didn't close. So there's a lot of situations where an Opportunity Zone Fund will serve as an alternative when a 1031 either isn't suitable or it just actually didn't work out as initially planned.
Okay. All right. So now if somebody's listening to this podcast and they want more information or they want to get into some of your funds and some of your opportunities, what's the best way to contact you? A phone, email, website? What do you like?
Yeah, they can reach out to me directly. So I'll give my phone number and email address. It's Brion, Brion, Crum, Crum, and my direct line is 480-881-1906. Caliber's website, we actually have two of them. One is for the parent company, which is not related just to Opportunity Zone funds, but pretty much everything that we do. So that's Caliber Co, CALIBERCO.com. And then for the security side of things, including our Opportunity Zone Fund itself, we have a website called caliberfunds.co. So that's CALIBERFUNDS.co.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm telling. I'll link to all that in the show notes for sure. But I'm telling you got me wanting to move to Arizona with all the stuff you got going on right now.
It's what all the cool kids are doing. We continuously see a lot of people and companies moving from other states, especially the West Coast, California, Washington, Oregon. We continuously see a lot of people and companies, moving to Arizona. We don't see as many people moving from Vegas because you have very similar type of weather. You already have low taxes and very business friendly. But then, of course, we continuously see Canadians and people from the Midwest. They might come on vacation. They might have a second home, and then they decide that they want to spend a little more time in Arizona. So we continuously see an uptick in the number of people and companies move into Arizona.
Yeah, give me Top Golf, pickleball, and a bowling alley, and I'm in. So that's for.
There we go. Yeah, you can live in a Zenny home next to a bowling alley and play pickleball anytime you want.
Perfect.
There you go. It sounds like heaven.
Watch my baseball games. All right, Vicki, what do you think? Do you want to close this out, or you have any questions for Brion?
Well, Brion, this is why we love to have you as a guest, because you kind of you and Caliber, you represent what we like to do on our podcast, and that is find a company like Caliber that's forward thinking, that sees an opportunity, well, pun intended, like opportunity zones, and then actually takes advantage of the program and makes it work to its best advantage, but also at the same time, you're working to change the world and making life better for so many people at so many levels that it's spectacular. Kudos to you, Brion, for choosing a company that's working to make the world better for a lot of people. That's fabulous.
Yeah, Vicki, I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much. And I've always enjoyed meeting with you guys and being on the show.
And we love you, Brion.
All right, Brion. Listen, thanks for being a guest on the show. Vicki, thanks for co-hosting this. And folks, you're listening to the Mappable USA podcast at mappableusa.com. Go to that website. You'll scroll down. You'll see all our syndication sources. Pick the one you like best and subscribe so you'll never miss another one of our episodes. Or if you want to be a guest on the show, like Brion was saying, there's a guest tab there. Fill that out. We'll see what we can do about getting you on the show. And if you like what you heard today, send us an email at info@mappableusa.com, or just leave a comment on whatever page you're listening to this on right now. So thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. We'll be at you next time with another Mappable USA podcast. Have a great week, everyone.